Welcome once again to another session in the module on writing. Just as we said at the beginning of this module, most business communication, science and technology communication, and serious formal communication of many different kinds use a variety of media to communicate information and to elicit information. Similarly, statistical data are communicated in many ways, in more ways than one. You know, you can have tables, you can have graphs, you can have histograms, you have pie charts, you have a lot of other things I am not even aware of. Okay, we can write reports about all of them because no chart, no graph is complete by itself without a report, without comments on the numbers that charts present, why these numbers are the way they are, and why these numbers are not different from the way they are. Okay, so therefore, each kind of transmission of information will have to be looked at carefully, but while writing about them, we follow the same basic principles. Okay, that is not so difficult to learn and to write to learn well. Just as, for example, please see, we have now before us a writing task which says uh, write a report on a pie chart. But whether pie chart or histograms or graphs or other kinds of charts and graphs, the basic principles are the same. Okay, as far as language is concerned. Next, all of these reports should have at least number one, overarching statement about the data. What these data are about. Do they describe buffaloes or cows? Do they describe lions or tigers? Are they about climate or something else? Okay. So what these data are about. Then the next point will maybe how they are presented. Do these data come to us as pie charts, as bar charts, as bar diagrams, or what? And in these charts or diagrams, how many tables, how many sections there are. In a graph, how many things are you saying? A graph can say a variety of things together. Annual rainfall, annual heat and cold temperature, you know, decay to buildings. A whole lot of things can be presented through a graph. Okay. So another important point to write about maybe how they are presented. And then the third, what are the most important points that arise from this chart, this table? Say, for instance, when we look at a railway timetable, it has so many axes. There are four columns on my left, there is a broad central column, and then there are four columns to the right. The timetable gives you particulars like the name of the train, the frequency, arrival and departure at different stations, okay, which days of the week they run or they don't run. All this information is there, but you are not looking at it for all the trains. Maybe you are looking at it for one particular train. So you know where in that chart you can look up your train. So for instance, you want to look at train number 19263. Now 19263 is the Porbandar Delhi Sarai Express. Okay, when does it leave? Where does it leave from? All that is given there. So, while writing a report on this timetable, you might say, as overall highlight, that this chart gives us the names of train, the frequency or the days on which they run, and their arrival and departure time. You have said that. So, people may decide whether this is the draft for them or they are looking at some wrong chart, wrong draft. So, go back. The point I am making is that regardless of how much chart contains, it may be lots, it may be little, you know. The one who is writing a report on the basis of these charts can always say, can always talk about important highlights. All right. Then, what are the other significant details? Okay. Imagine, take the example of a timetable again. It is possible that there are only two direct trains, but there are trains which pass through your town or city. So, in that case, you can say, the timetable will tell you that in all there are 10 trains to your city, though only two of them begin here and end in your city. Okay, so all these things can be highlighted, can be mentioned, and then concluding remarks. Do all these things lead to one particular conclusion? Okay, if they do, wonderful, mention it. If they don't, say that. Nothing much can be, nothing can be formally concluded from this letter. That will still be very effective. It will help the reader understand the chart better. Okay, now look at them in some detail. Write a report on the basis of the data presented in the following pie chart for a household survey conducted recently. It doesn't give you definite time, it doesn't give you place, maybe it has its own reasons, but all the information that is there in the digital form, verbally, can be taken out of the chart and can be presented in a piece of good prose written by us. Look at the sections, look at the data, look at the figures, and also look at their interrelationships. What one speaks about the other. Go next. In this full draft, as you noticed earlier, there is just a mechanical reproduction of data. What you see in numbers, you see in words here. 56% respondents are housewives and unemployed. Go back to the data. That's what it says. Do we need a prose report to say that? 25, 28% respondents work as domestic help. Do we need a report on that? It is here. The pie chart does that function best. In one page, that is the beauty of presenting statistical information in accepted forms like graphs, charts. In highly little, you show all the trends, all the numbers that are there. What you do not show you know, in those media, using any of these particular medium is the difference and the relationship between two nodes, which may be important. Why did business grow so rapidly between 2010 and 2020 or 2010 and 2015? But why is it not growing between 2015 and 20? So once you ask this question, the answer becomes obvious. The answer is the local government had some policies which were not conducive to the growth of the business. And here is the evidence. So unless you look at internodal differences, the difference between 2010-15, one section, and the other section will be 2015-20. Why did in one section business grow rapidly but not in the other? This can be shown best by report. Of course, the report can also cite actual numbers, but it will have to go beyond actual numbers. It is expected to say a little more, which is not otherwise very clearly obvious in this form. So come back to the report. It's just a mechanical reproduction. 28% ladies work as domestic help, 7% have their own shops and businesses, and 5% ladies are employed. Otherwise, 2% only work as daily wage labor, and 2% are self employed by means of, which means they work in their own homes or in their companies. That's all. Okay? Just a mechanical, you get no wiser. You look at the report, you look at the chart, you have the same information. No more, no less. But it can be written differently. Look at it. It goes on a tangent. The chart shows great unemployment among women, whereas all men are employed and get jobs. These days, women still do not get jobs. Government should bring reservation for women in all departments. Women can also become police officers and bus drivers. They need not always be asked to sit at home and cook. Global sentiments. No one will say the sentiments are wrong. You know, there must be justice for all. There must be equality for all. But is this the place to say all this? And what does this kind of writing, what does this kind of report tell the reader about the information they contain? This is what many people call gas, you know, anger waiting to come out, but not information that can make you wiser, that can help you decide better. That is not there. And that is why, in spite of the fact that it observes word limit, you know, 146 words, 150 words are about the same thing. 4 or 5 words, more or less, won't attract any penalty. But what will attract penalty here is the absence of information, the absence of insight into the table, which only a human being or which only an intelligent human being can have. After all, every test item has a purpose. When you are asked to write on a given, you know, chart or diagram or bar giving you statistics, then you are expected to, you know, demonstrate your ability in language and your ability to analyze statistical data. In this kind of writing, your ability of language is, can be seen partly, can be shown partly, but your ability to analyze, evaluate, and make predictions on the basis of data hardly find a chance of expression. It remains unsaid. And therefore, even if it is within limit, it's not a good piece of writing because it lacks fundamentals. Go next. As I've said, the draft given above meets the requirements of word count, word limit, but nothing else, little. It goes on a tangent about women's rights, human rights, democracy. Okay, these details do not make you wiser here. And data are just mechanically reproduced. X is X, Y is Y. Not that, between X and Y, there is a gap which can be or which should not be filled in. Next, look at another draft, a better draft, a subsequent draft. Okay. I'm not saying this is perfect. Maybe it can be made better. But perhaps it seeks to answer all the relevant questions. It first says what the chart or the data are about. So it says it is about how people work, what kind of work they are engaged in, you know, and that the data here have been presented in the form of a chart, not in the form of a graph, not in the form of a bar diagram, not as a photograph. Okay, the information here is presented as a pie chart. All right. Then, then chart has sections. Pie, if it is a pie, then pie has sections. What are those sections? The one each for a kind of work, okay, or absence of work. And then other things, other categories, you know, what kind of work and how much, how many people, okay. And it also shows that all respondents that are talked about, that are mentioned here, are women, okay. But time of survey, etc., are not indicated. We do not know when this survey was done, okay. There is nothing like that on the chart. Now, section 1 of the chart shows that over half the women, you could as well say 56%, but a more telling, greater impact will come from saying more than half the women are housewives or unemployed. For some reason, and perhaps rightly so, uh, becoming a housewife is not seen as a mark of respect. You know, so that is why unemployed and housewives have been put together. Otherwise, strictly speaking, it's not that housewives are unemployed. I mean, it's another matter that their job is not recognized, but you, as a sensitive human being, all of us as university people, should learn to respect the kind of 24 into 7 job that those who stay home and allow themselves to be called housewives do, you know. So, it's not good, therefore, to bracket them with unemployed. But for some reason, this pie chart has done so. And that is why, it is unclear if they are all unemployed or only some, you know. It's not clear how many of them tried to find a job and could not get a job outside their homes. To that extent, that section of the data is misleading. Go next. What is one huge area where a lot more women than men are employed, or where a lot more of the total number of women, most women are employed? And it seems even today that is work as domestic help. Okay, that's a huge sector. It takes all kinds and employs all kinds. One fourth of all respondents, actually a little more than one fourth of all respondents, not 25%. It is 28% of all respondents who happen to be women are employed as domestic help. Others are very few, 5%, 2%, 7%, self-employed, employed in other services, or working as daily wage labor, you know. That is, this also shows that not many new unconventional avenues of employment have come up for women who are not otherwise very educated or highly skilled. Okay, but perhaps that is changing, and this is not the place we talk about that. The chart definitely shows that new sectors of unemployment are yet to open for women. Saying all this has taken maybe 2 words more than the minimum, 152 words, but then the report says things which are faithful to the statistical information and yet go beyond information that a statistical table might by itself give. Next. Why does it happen? We saw that both the drafts have been done in good English. So the English is not a problem. Actually, I would go to the extent of saying that a good piece of writing requires more than language. It requires a, a sharp eye, a sharp mind for details, for examining and concluding what is relevant and what must be said and how must that be said. Language is important, but language is only one of the important parts of a good piece of writing. There are others, and this one of the others is before you begin writing, look at the chart, look at the data, look at the graph, look at the bar diagram carefully until you feel you have got all the information in your mind, brain. Okay? And then use expressions which do not require too many words, where one word can replace many words. So, for example, what is the point saying that more than so many people are employed there? You can say over so many people. Why you need to say you know under so many people? You can just say less than, fewer than. Okay. Pie chart here. The pie chart has the results of a household survey. Simple. Okay. And then we don't have to say of the total number of respondents. We can simply say all respondents are women, 56% respondents are housewives and unemployed. Okay. So we save a whole lot of these words of the total number of respondents. Ladies are in other kinds of jobs. Ladies are in other jobs, or ladies do other things as good, you know, as employed means they work in their own, are self employed, and then you have to define. You don't have to define self employed, does not necessarily work all the time in their homes. They may also go out. Imagine somebody runs a school, she is a teacher, and she claims I am self employed. Would you therefore say that she is all the time in her home? You know, these are prejudices, biases. They make for bad writing and they take a lot of words. So, come back to the screen where we were. Yeah, please. Okay. So look at the chart carefully and use devices. Ask yourself how much of what I'm saying is necessary, how much of it need not be said, how much of it can be left unsaid, how much of it can be said in fewer words if there are other expressions. And the moment you ask yourself these questions, after the first draft, of course, the first draft should be without a thought for language. Write anything that comes to your head. Write everything that comes to your head. And then start editing. And once you get rid of these superfluities, redundancies, inaccuracies, your writing will become perfect, as good as they ought to be. Next. As I have been saying, please allow me, please bear with me. Allow me to say that once again. Perfection and real learning. What is real learning? Real learning, doubts will still come to you, doubts will still arise in your mind. You might still make mistakes, but when you really learn something well, then you will notice your mistakes as soon as you make them. You will be able to answer your doubts, your queries, your confusions, your questions yourself. You may not have to seek external help to correct a mistake if you make one by chance. It is possible. We tend to be absent minded and we make mistakes. That is in the nature of human beings. Okay? But it is also in the nature of human beings that if they are alert and if they know their subject well, they immediately know. As soon as they make a mistake, they know that I have made a mistake. And this is the mistake I have made. And this is how it can be rectified. Okay? So have some practice. Maybe not every day, but once in a week. once in 3 days, once in 4 days. You can write, you can take some of these numerical data. You get them frequently in newspapers, on in social media, on websites, and you can look at them and write your own short reports. And if you find they are not good, revise them, rewrite, check, and recheck, and you will find in this manner, in no time, in about a few weeks, you become as good a writer, as good an editor as anybody else. Go next. You don't have to do them all, and you don't have to do all that every day. But as I have been saying, once in a while, do maybe one this week, another next week, so that you also have variety in your work. And then real learning happens. Good luck and thank you.